And we are live. It connected very quickly today. I take that as a good omen. Hello, and welcome to another episode of our FreudenFreude video podcast, where we bring you content to help you grow and develop as a person and as a leader.
I am Sandra Corona.
And I am Claudia. And
And
we
we are
are coaches.
coaches. Yes.
Yay. There we are.
So I am a coach for leaders, for mid-management, for the neurodiverse community, and for young professionals.
There you go. And I'm a professional coach working with entrepreneurs, professionals, corporate leaders, as well as their teams, so they can solve their problems. Okay, so let's go from there. Today we have an interesting topic that is very broad, or can be very broad, and it is the subtle art of thinking before speaking. I'm sure we'll get into the flow of this episode soon enough. So, thinking before speaking. You had originally proposed this topic, Cassandra. What made you suggest it?
Okay, so for everybody on this side of the world, meaning the Western world, I just moved back to the States just 2 months ago. And I can't believe it's been 2 months. And I still feel that sometimes it's a long time, but then at the same time, not enough. But the little that I started interacting with people as the days started passing by, I noticed that sadly, and hear me out before you judge my words, is that I see and hear a lot of people that no longer are making the effort to listen, to actively listen to people. They want to only respond based on what they feel they're being attacked on rather than what they're being asked for or about. And this started with my HOA, which is the Homeowners Association. You know about that, Claudia, here in the States. These are a group of people that manage housing based on the community that you live. Not all communities have them, but it's half and half. Some of the states, some not. And then the people that I interacted, such as pharmacy, texting people, doctors, and people, I noticed that you are being very clear, at least in my perception. Remember, perception, my perception is mine, doesn't mean that I'm being logical. I assume I am. And I ask a question, and they immediately go to a topic that sounded to them important, or maybe it was because they weren't listening. So some people filter out words. I don't know if you've noticed that, Claudia. You filter out words, and what you capture based on the attention span that you have, that's what you answer, rather than the real question, or the real question behind the question. And so I started getting very frustrated because this was not what I remember 9 years ago. People were into service. They were into being concerned of what you needed, what you wanted, and how to fix things.
Right.
Now there is no interest in that.
Yeah, I think that you mentioned one word that might have a large impact on this, and that is attention span. I think that 9 years ago, people were not as I don't want to use the word addicted, but influenced by social media, by sound bites, by 1 minute shorts, by small blog posts, or posts on social media where the important words are bolded, so you don't even
Yes.
need to read the entire thing, or it's just a quote on a picture and things like that. I think that many people are just not used anymore to a level of concentration to really follow you from the beginning of your explanation to the end, and to filter out the really important salient points of this longer, maybe explanation, and oh, that's the point that's really painful here, or that is what she's really asking, and so on. I think that not only is the interest not there, but maybe even the capacity, because you and I know that deep work it is something that requires training, that requires concentration, that you don't just shake out of your sleeve in order to make it happen.
Yeah.
Then, of course, if there's a certain level of disengagement, which is also epidemic in our workforces everywhere, not only in America, but everywhere, that people just don't care, they are not involved, they don't pride themselves on good customer service, for instance, or it's not really that's not what they're there for. They might be there for a paycheck, but not to do a good job. And so there's so many things that filter into this. And then of course they might actually not be able to think before they speak, or to listen before they speak. And everything gets reduced to the same answer, no matter who is in front of you. Right.
Yes, yes.
It's and you just told me recently a story of that it's not only like the people that you have a short interaction with potentially, but also sometimes people that you go see, like a doctor. You had mentioned that even there you had a case of that might illustrate this.
Yeah. So it wasn't until I went to the doctor. Incredibly, look, you get used to living in Saudi Arabia. I was used to how they were and their biases and everything else. I was over and done with that. I didn't care anymore. But now that I move here, you're thinking, oh, I'm going to have better, amazing service as to the one that I remembered. So going to the doctor, there's this girl online that she was talking about her personal experience with a doctor, where this doctor was a doctor for losing weight, diabetes, ICU emergency, all this kind of stuff that are important to understand a person's where they're coming from, okay, where their patients are coming from. The problem that I saw with that is that there was a bias, like red flags everywhere, okay, based on what she was saying. And now let me come back to my experience with the doctor, where I realized, oh, wait a second, this is strange, because when I walk into the doctor's office, he assumed that based on my age, based on my weight, based on my afflictions, based on what I was saying, it was all based on what he was saying, that I was eating too much, that I wasn't eating the right foods, that I was snacking, that I was doing all of these kind of things, rather than to ask the right questions and listen to what I was saying. This girl called her doctor as having no filters and a non-BS doctor, and like very straightforward, blah, blah, blah. What I saw is a lack of listening, a lack of interest, a lack of empathy into what the person is saying. I didn't care about the empathy, but I'm adding that into it based on what her experiences was. And based on my experience was more about, this is what I see. And based on the box in which I have people like her, this is what I know, because I know that she is snacking. I know that she's not exercising. I know that she is lazy. I know that she doesn't do this. I mean, he started creating all this list of things based on the questions that he was asking me. And I was telling him, oh, sorry, erase that. He asked me one specific question that I said, he's not listening. And that's when I knew I was with the wrong doctor. He said, he asked me, how much are you spending on groceries? And for me, in my mind, I was like, what does that have anything to do with my desire to lose some weight? And he I tell him $150 every week. Okay. Thinking about the overall expenses in my house. And he says, well, see, my wife, we are a family of 6, and she only spends $85 at the grocery store every 2 weeks. Mind you, I had explained to him, I had just moved a month ago from Saudi Arabia. Okay. And he tells me, so what are you spending? What are you buying? Are you buying candy? Are you buying chocolates? I immediately said, well, wait a second. I said, very calmly, I said, you see, doctor, your wife has been living in Houston, would say more than 5 years or a year. I just arrived a month ago. My pantry, in compared to your family's, is nothing other than 5 spices in my pantry. So that means that every time I have to go to the supermarket, I have to buy new things to start creating a pantry. And he immediately just pushes back. He's like, oh, okay, so you're not buying chocolate. So in his mind, he had to be right or find a reason to be right based on his biases. Okay. Right. So I think that if we think about not listening to people, I had not realized the extension to which it reaches, which is every area. You're thinking that doctors are compassionate. Some of them are, not all of them. But in this case, this doctor his biases are helping him survive and navigate his career, in my opinion.
Right, right. So I could sing you a litany of doctors that box me and stereotype me the moment they see me without me even having said hello. Like the second you walk into the room, you're already all classified, labeled, put into the file drawer, and done, right? And those that know me know that there's probably not a person more strict on diets and things like that as I am to manage my various health conditions and things like that. But in any case, there is some basis there. Let me play devil's advocate. I'm not saying doctors should react that way. I'm trying to explain maybe why they are that way. If you see hundreds of patients and 99.9% of them do the bad deeds, eat the chocolate, do all these things, and then they come to the doctor and they, lie about it. A lot of patients do not necessarily tell the truth, and so on. Or there's evidence, they just say, yeah, okay, I do eat the chocolate. Tough luck, we have to deal with it. Just, because I take insulin, why shouldn't I have the chocolate? Right. But in any case, so they are confronted with a large percentage of people that fit that particular mold. So our brain, being lazy as it is, categorizes, it keeps a weighted average of responses, and it creates kind of this shortcut of if somebody looks like that or somebody says something like that, they belong in that box. It is a natural mechanism of our brain. Okay? That is at the basis of biases. It's shortcuts for our brain. Our brain is a very busy organ. We're feeding it too much, or at least a lot. It has to filter through it. It has to do all these things. So the brain, instead of every time thinking through it and going through the 27 questions and really listening, the brain, not being your friend, jumps to conclusions. Yeah. And this jumping to conclusion is biases, okay? Stereotyping, generalizing, and so on. It's just because our brain fundamentally is lazy. All of our brains are lazy.
Yeah.
And so we can kind of understand that that can happen, but at least a learned person like a doctor should be aware of this, I think. And maybe that's also the aim of this particular episode, is that we are aware that this happens and
Mm-hmm.
that we try our bestest
Mm-hmm.
to counteract that, to actually, with awareness and consciously listen and ask and not assume. And
Mm-hmm.
yay, here's again my opening that I wait for every episode. It's like, it's about assumption and expectation management. There, I said it. It's checked
Mm-hmm.
for this time, but it always comes up. It's such a fundamental thing. Do not assume that what worked the last 1,000 times is
Yes.
also right on the 1,001st time, but go in fresh with new with a blank sheet of paper and really listen and really do it,
Mm-hmm.
because you know that these biases exist. You have
Mm-hmm.
to resist it,
Mm-hmm.
because the biases you get for free, our brain just does it. And unless you do a concerted effort to think before you react, to respond well, and to listen,
Mm-hmm.
out is going to come this jumped to conclusion reaction, this
Yes.
jump to conclusion words. You speak without having it given your due attention. And
Mm-hmm.
ultimately, what you respond to, or what you react to, I'm sorry, is the image you have, the model you have in your head about this person, and you're not responding to the person, right? You have this idea, and that's what drives what you say, rather than a genuine conversation and general thinking through input that you have received. So,
Yes.
I think that that's where it comes from. And
Yes.
unless it's unless sorry, if you leave it unchecked, everybody behaves like that, not just this doctor. But I
Mm-hmm.
believe that it's important that we realize that this is happening inside our brains, and that we
Yes.
take measures to be more authentic and more empathetic, more interested in what's really going on. Sorry, a long one, but I felt it was important to say it.
No, I mean, look, this is what I was thinking about. One of the, we're ICQers, right, with Chavatoth. And one of our peers is in coaching and cultural management for the health industry. And thousands of times, well, I'm probably over exaggerating. I would say like more than 10 times, I have questioned, why is he targeting the health industry? I couldn't wrap my head around it. I'm sorry, until this experiences with these doctors. I thought, oh, I had never seen the opportunity, and I have to say the opportunity to categorize a doctor as bias, because we are so used to seeing doctors. One of the things that I was telling you before coming live is like, we're so used to seeing doctors as a higher authority in knowing it all based on the human body and studies and all that kind of stuff. You assume they know what they're talking about. Therefore, and also, let's remember that doctors shut you down when you question their knowledge. Yes. Or when you say, well, no, that's not it, because they're biased, like you say, it's based on memory. We retrieve the information of prior experiences so that we can make current or future decisions, rather than, like you're saying, listening and looking at the person, rather than making decisions based on memory based experiences.
Mhm.
So we're they don't like that. And so when we question something like that, it's like we put this wall in front of them, and they hit themselves. They're like, whoa, wait a second, what are you making me think here?
Mm.
I actually now have to listen. And when you do that, you actually have a better experience. It is uncomfortable because nobody likes to question authority. That's something that we've been taught. So when you start actually, you as a patient, thinking and paying attention to what your doctor is telling you, you can actually say, whoa, no, this is not how it's happening. And you're going to have a better experiences rather than to say, well, if the doctor says this is what it is, I'm not going to question it. No.
Right. You have to advocate for yourself.
Exactly.
However, let that be said, there's no guarantee for success. Some doctors you can, and sorry if we're using doctors here as examples. This is one service provider, let's say, that we are all familiar with, and that's why we bring it up as an example. But this thing transcends professions. Okay, it's just essentially everybody that we're engaging with. So some doctors you can push back, some doctors you say, no, you have to listen to me. This is really how my reality looks like. And they're still not going to believe you.
Correct.
They're going to belittle you. They're going to straight out to your face say you're all making this up. I had people tell me that, right? So you go to a specialist because you move. For instance, I moved back to Luxembourg also a number of years ago, and I had this particular situation. I had been from doctor to doctor in America. I had my treatment. It was working. I go to this doctor. I explain it. I had, of course, prescriptions and test results, everything with me. And she's flat out said, no, I do not believe you. And it's like, because it's kind of a non-typical presentation of my situation. And it's like they didn't believe me no matter what I said. Not only did they not believe me, they didn't believe my prior specialists, because I was taking medication that is not over the counter, that I had to have prescribed and so on. But yet it was absolutely belittled, because she had her ideas of how things were supposed to go. And anything that was outside of that could not be true. And this also is another thing that we as coaches know well. It is that what you often see in the coaching teaching literature, the coaching pedagogy, is that you have this internal model, and that how the world works, right? It's like your internal rules and checks and model of reality. It's what makes sense to you. And it is what they say a self-fulfilling prophecy, meaning that the brain is going to do anything in its power to keep that view of the world, that is your internal model, correct. Meaning, if something happens that is outside of what makes sense in this model, it is discounted, it is belittled, it is refused, it is rejected, and so on, because the number one goal of your brain is to keep this internal model consistent. And so it's like the person cannot fathom that something exists that is not explained by their internal model. And remember, some of these people have done a lot of schooling, and they have had experience that confirmed what they had been taught in many, many, many cases. The danger is that if they rely too much on that, they will miss the sometimes odd or out of the norm presentation, let's say, of a disease or of a cross product of diseases and things like that, right? Because they're missing it, because it only, in their brain, it only can be one way. This is the way, right?
Yes, correct,
And
correct.
so there's a lot going on there in terms of how our brain works. But it is really true that this internal model is needs to stay consistent. If something happens that really breaks the nice, tight, makes sense kind of model, if something breaks, people can go into the state called cognitive dissonance. And
Mm-hmm.
you're like, you lose all your internal reference points, and you absolutely at a loss, and you do not know what's going on, because everything is shaken out of its mold in a way, and all of a sudden nothing seems to make sense. Some people might have experienced that during COVID, right? Where everybody has a job and there's food in the supermarkets for us to buy. And, of course, we can go out and things like that. And of course, I have my health, right? There were these things that were very nice and confirmed and assumed and held dear in this internal model. And all of a sudden, when COVID hit, and a lot of these things that had always been there were shaken,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of people experienced this cognitive dissonance. All of a sudden, they didn't know anymore what was right. And they were starting to question even things that were still okay, like the love they felt for their loved one, let's say,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh my God, all these other things are like breaking up. Is this going to break up? And
Mm-hmm.
so a lot of things going on under the hood, as they say.
Right. Look, sometimes I kind of feel that if we were to look at the world where how we're seeing it today, everything is a bias. So now I'm wondering if what we're really questioning is the person's ability to reason or their biases. Maybe it's both, right? But the most important thing that we have to remember is that a bias and a perception is based on the person's uh, beliefs, values, goals, emotions. Okay. And it's everything is personal. So now, if we extend, you remember that one of the things that Chava told us is that uh, everything can be changed. Our values, our beliefs, everything can be changed. And so the only thing that who we are in essence, that is the one thing that I add, not that Chava said, but the only thing that we are left in essence is how we really react to everything. Yes, what people tell us and what they think and everything else is really not important. So okay, so let me put it this way. For better decision making, we have to remember that everything is going to be based on our own personal values and beliefs, okay? And morals. And then on the other side, the person is going to see my decision making as incorrect because it doesn't share their values, their beliefs, their goals, and everything else. So what is left is to be or do the rational thing. What is everything that is distorted from questionable things? We strive to be clear and objective every time in reality, but we can't always aim or be perfect. So we have to be mindful of our biases and the filters. Remember that a long time ago we had a conversation about filters. We have to remember that every information that we process and the attention span, going back to the attention span, the way that we filter it, whatever comes out is what we think is correct. So we have to be mindful of our values, our beliefs, our goals, our traditions, everything, and remember that, like Claudia was saying, something very important. You know, doctors are like the CEOs. So think about it as both ways. They put everything in a box because it's quicker for them to make a decision rather than to think with their goals, their values and beliefs. They just say, this doesn't go, this goes here, this goes there. And that is sometimes the reason why some of these people are who they are. They're the best in the best, right? You go to the best doctor, you go to the best, you go to the CEO because you know they're going to make the decisions based what is best for the company, right? And then, I mean, it's a lot that we have to think about. These people, like Claudia was saying, doctors see 30 people a day. So it's very normal for them to say, this goes here, this person goes there, and this and that and that.
Right.
So we have to think that a CEO is really the best person to make at that point. That's why they are where they are. A CEO is one of the best decision makers because they think of what is without goals, values, and everything else. That's how I see it.
Right. So thank you for that. So if I understand correctly, there's a couple points you're stating here. And first of all, I want to open a small parenthesis. I do not want to say that all bias is bad. These biases, these you know, the often traveled path, is there because it applies in the vast majority of cases. Okay, that's where biases come from, because they have been trained and trained and trained and trained and trained. And all of a sudden, instead of having a small little path that you have to go the first time, you have this 4-lane highway that you can cruise along at great speed, right? So these thought patterns, because they have proven themselves in reality to be very often repeatable and true, are not in essence bad because they fit the majority of cases. I think the danger here is when something comes that contradicts it, that we discount that piece of data, that we tell the person you're lying, that we do not allow for the occasional bit that doesn't fit there.
The one-off, yeah.
The one-off, the exception to the rule. Most importantly, that we do not start judging people or their behavior based on what we think should be happening. Because in our experience, we're always cruising down that highway that way. And now all of a sudden there's like, this thing happening that doesn't fit. And, it's not okay to just continue cruising down your highway and disregarding, these other pieces. These other pieces of information that are there.
Yes.
And then say you're lying or, you're wrong, and so on. So I think that the way to balance all that is to keep awareness happening, to realize, okay, so if I now, first of all, know that you are jumping to conclusions, first of all. Know that is something that you do, but then see and check if what you're suggesting based on your experience, based on this shortcut that you're taking, actually fits and is truly able to be understood by others. Because, just because, and sorry to go back to the doctor example, just because 99 people out of 100 that come to you for obesity do eat chocolate, ice cream, pizza every day, whatever, just imagining that were true, right? If one person comes and says, no, I do not do that, not say you're lying or it's wrong, and continue, absolutely, you weigh this much, therefore you must be doing that and that and that. Okay, so I think this awareness is key, and to listen to what other people give you as input, but also to see how other people react to what you're saying. Is what you're stating true? Like,
A
how do they
fact.
react, right? I mean, are they able to accept it? Is there resistance and so on? And
Hmm.
have true communication,
Yes.
not just one way judging and stereotyping and so on.
Exactly. Quick decisions. I would say that sometimes they're also prone to very quick decision making, which really causes a lot of stress and burnout. If you think about it, if I am constantly forgetting about, um, uh, the that what I'm saying is quick decision making rather than thinking through the process, I am going to constantly be on burn. Well, not constantly. I'm so sorry. I am going to be on burnout most of the times, right? Of the week, of the month, of the months, right? Because when you remove the emotions, when you remove the ability to listen, you're removing the opportunity of thinking, of speaking, of thinking, sorry, and then speaking. So I know that a lot of people out there, and let's talk about this and let's be honest, we live in a fast-paced world where fast thinking is what a lot of people want. Like, remove this, remove that, just give me, what is that you want? What is that you need? Right? And for some people, it is the decision making comes from a place of kindness, of generosity, of of uh, of empathy. Okay, and thank you to all of those people out there, right? That make those kind of decisions. But then I would say that those are the sidekicks. We were talking about that, where I see that CEOs are the people that, unfortunately, and not all of them, I'm going to be very clear, not all CEOs lack empathy, right? But when you remove empathy, that is when the right decisions are made based on the need of the business and the nature and all that kind of stuff. Then these CEOs, these high levels of C offices or C sections or whatever you want to call them, when they need for empathy and collaboration and all of that to kick in, that's why they have their sidekicks. That's how I call, or what I call, managers and leaders. They are the sidekicks. They're the people that are in touch. I'm sorry. They're the people that are in touch with the people and the empathetical part of the business, right? So, but at the end of the day, we know that behind a great leader is an amazing group of people, and these amazing group of people are the ones that are hardly ever recognized. These are the people that don't go to the CEO or the C-suite. These are the people that they do go in good positions, but they don't pass from that. In other words, I think that decision making before speaking, and I find it hard to say, but it's wishful thinking, that there was a middle, right? That there was a middle when it comes to decision making, but unfortunately there isn't. So who do you want to be? Do you want to be a person in middle management? Do you want to reach C-suite? Where you are in life and where you want to be in life. Decision making is not easy. I have to say.
I think not only like decision making, but it is what you pay attention to and what
Mm-hmm.
ultimately is important. I believe that people that are in very high positions, that need to think about strategy, that need to make data informed decisions, that need to really run a business. They think on a much more conceptual level. When a CEO makes maybe a strategic decision for the company, they cannot be concerned at that moment necessarily about every single person's emotional response to what they're saying. right? I'm not saying they should make decisions that disregard that. I'm saying they are not at that moment really thinking about the workforce as a whole, maybe growth of the company as a whole,
Mm-hmm.
future proofing the business, and so
Mm-hmm.
on. They are thinking on a more conceptual level. And of
Mm-hmm.
course, yes, then that needs to be taken by the VPs, the middle management, all the way to the ground floor manager and team leader, and be translated into something that makes sense for people at that level of the company, and that then can be executed, understood and executed upon. So there is a higher level of abstraction the higher up in the company you go. And to some people, it might look that those maybe more data-driven decisions that are being taken and so on lack empathy, but that doesn't mean that all those CEOs are non-empathetic people. It's just that at that moment in their professional capacity, they had to wear a hat that that had to uh, uh, allow for decisions at a different level or with a different set of criteria, because
Mm-hmm.
it is something that a business is about profits, it's about certain results, it's about shareholder value, it is about all these kind of things, it's about data, and nowadays even more and more and more and more and more data, right? So um, in that professional capacity. And this is not a judgment of them as a person. It's
No.
just a reality that they're confronted
Yeah.
with in that job, which not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can do, by the way. Not
Mm-hmm.
everybody can be this kind of CEO that can take these level of decisions or carry the responsibility. And
Yes.
some people, and I think that also resonates with what you said earlier, some people might actually be just as happy as a middle manager and
Mm-hmm.
do not even aspire to go any further. And that's perfectly
Exactly.
okay, because we need people that care about people in
Exactly.
those levels of
In those
the.
positions. Exactly. Exactly. You know what I was thinking about right now, believe it or not? You know what came to mind when I think about the CEOs of the world? Not all of them again, the ones that are very data driven. Vulcan. We're talking about Star Trek here. As a now I call myself a self-proclaimed Trekkie. A Vulcan, right? Spock. He was very data driven. He was everything about logic and what was the reasonable thing to do for the what was it that he used, the word that they used is the greater for the, oh my gosh, I forgot. Honey, do you know the phrase? What is it? The greater,
the needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few.
The needs of the many outweighs the needs of the few. Okay, so
You have your
but
Star Trek whisperer behind you.
yes, I was thinking, let's be honest, even though he was the right CEO for the position, he preferred to be the the sidekick, the number one for what's his name? The
Kirk.
captain?
Kirk.
Kirk, exactly, for Kirk. And Kirk, believe it or not, him being supposed the person that was that was leading the enterprise, he also thought about the feelings, his people. He was a captain, right? So now I also think that even CEOs like a Vulcan need a captain. You know what I'm saying? So it goes down that chain. That's how it is. So if we think about it, even though thinking before talking or speaking means that you could that a Spock could have been the right CEO, no. Kirk was the right CEO. He was the right person because he cared about his people. He thought about he went to risky, dangerous missions to save his people, when Spock would have said no.
Right. So, and there are different strengths here
Yes.
at play, obviously. And, my view would be, don't go it alone, but
Exactly.
go it with people that are cognitively and emotionally diverse from you, and
Yes.
come up with the great middle ground. Because yes, we need the data-driven ones that can make sometimes hard decisions based on data and so on. But we also need the ones that care about people. We need the strategists, and we need the the ones that execute, not executors. Executives, right? So we need the logistical ones, and we need the visionaries. That's what leadership is all about. You should bring these different ones together. And I think we can probably all agree that it's not like one person can be everything to everybody.
Yep. Exactly.
And that is why it's so important to truly collaborate. Again, it starts with awareness of what makes you tick, and what your strengths are, and what your areas of improvement are, what your values are, how you fit in, how you can contribute. But then also to have the emotional and cultural understanding of what makes other people tick, how they can contribute, what their values are, and so on. And then, moreover, to see what are the values and ways of working in the collective. What is the company like? What is the team dynamic or the company culture like? And to bring it all together, because it's like, of course, now we transcended from the individual all the way to a large collective. But it is true that be more aware of all the things that are outside, because for us as individuals, it's a very strong opportunity to learn by engaging and discussing and communicating, and really, really being open to seeing how what we suggest is received. How do other people react to what we're saying, to what we're assuming? Always asking ourselves, are my assumptions correct? Are my expectations correct? Like expectations that, something was understood the way that I intended it to. There's a wonderful quote by George Bernard Shaw, and he says, the biggest problem with communication is the illusion that it has taken place. Right? And it is really true. So make sure that what you wanted to say has been communicated. So it's not only thinking before speaking and having awareness before speaking, but also observing, after you have spoken. And
the impact, yes.
Really, thank you, great word, to see what's the impact of what you have said, what you have initiated. Has the message come across? And I think that once we go into that and we engage in truly active listening, where we even give back to the person our heard and understood version of what they have said, reflecting it back and asking, is this what you meant? Right? This whole looping of double checking content of conversation. It is so impactful. So it's not just the moment that you stop and you think, and then you just proceed down your highway by stating what for you is so obviously obvious, and then you just let it go, right? That's not necessarily enough, this thinking before speaking. It has to be this dance of forth and back, and setting intention, communicating, checking that it is received, asking maybe for confirmation, and so on, to really make sure that communication takes place. What do you think of
Yes.
that?
You know what I was thinking is that, yes, what one of the most lastly and most important things that you just said is, the impact that it has to the people. And I was thinking, okay, so if I am saying that captains have to sometimes, I'm sorry, not captains, CEOs have to most of the times remove the emotions, the feelings, and blah, 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 and all these things to make a decision. I'm thinking, then who is the captain? I mean, I said there always has to be a captain, and I just thought about the best perfect fit for it of being a captain, a coach, right? Because at the end of the day, a CEO, we're so used to seeing them as heartless, cold-hearted, and all this kind of stuff, ruthless and blah, blah, blah. But we hardly ever wonder how many of these actually need that understanding, like you're saying, to remember what it used to be a captain, to say, okay, let me think about the well-being of my people, which is what the goal is right now, right? Nowadays, we're looking for the goal to see for a CEO to have the capacity to think about the wellness of the person, and then of the whole group, what benefits the whole group, start extending it and then extending it. I mean, there's so much that we're asking of them. And so I'm thinking, who is a captain for a CEO, a coach? Because we bring back into the decision-making process, what is that they're trying to get? Because maybe sometimes they don't even know what they want or need from the group and how to get it from the group. So I think a coach, when we are put into the mix, we help those CEOs to recapture their humanity, so that next time, based on their experiences, right, they can make better decisions, such as listening, right? You don't have to be involved, but you have to listen to understand. Right. And that is what makes a good decision maker, not a CEO name anymore. Remember what I'm saying. A good decision maker doesn't necessarily have to be a CEO.
Right, absolutely. Because I think there's an adage that says it's lonely at the top. And I have, had the opportunity to work with people that really shouldered the whole company and the whole decision maker on themselves. And they would be the one, because of the impact and the magnitude of their decisions, that would need the most input from their executive staff, from their VPs, from their, from their whole team that they have working for them. But they were the least able to ask for it. They need the most help because it's a big decision, and they're the least able to ask for it. And if you have the ability, the capability, or the opportunity to coach somebody like that, and that they can free themselves from this Jupiter syndrome, I believe it is called, right? That you're all alone on the summit of this mountain, and you have to literally carry the whole company on your shoulders. And you are able then to tap into this much more collective intelligence of your executive team, and well-intentioned consultants and things like that. And you open yourself up to their input, their suggestions, and so on. It can open up so many avenues. But see, that is ideally what would happen. But what makes these people such great business people at the top is exactly what makes it difficult for them to engage at that level with their executive team, right? So they have gotten to where they are because they are able to take that road. They have always taken it. So it is not by any stretch of the imagination a trivial step for them to take, to allow input, to open themselves up a little more for other perspectives and things like that. It is hugely difficult. So, and that's of course what, would make it really exciting for a coach like us, right, to work with people like that, and to help them explore the possibility of, doing things slightly differently.
Mhm.
And so, let's hope that we get many more opportunities to help such leaders explore this, because there's so much that goes into it. And again, here we have talked a lot about these biases, these jumping to conclusions. I just want to put a disclaimer here. We did use some very stereotypical examples today. We provided shortcut answers and generalities to illustrate points, but in no way is that how we work. And I speak here for you, but in my case, definitely, right? I mean, we do listen and we do explore together. And, every coaching engagement, every coach client relationships is truly custom and one of a kind. And so, we did take some liberties here to illustrate points. Just wanted to say that.
Right. Exactly. Based on personal experiences.
As well.
Yeah. Exactly. So yes, thank you, Claudia. I think what you said summarizes it for me. So I have nothing else to add.
Yeah, this was interesting, and if it maybe for some of our listeners sounded like a little bit all over the map, it's because it is. It's all over the map. So many things that go into it, from personality to identity to culture and so on. And that's what makes the work of a coach also very, very interesting. Exactly. So thank you, Sandra. Thank you, everybody, for listening. This was yet again a very long episode, but I hope you found some values in it. In it. If you did, please show some love, subscribe to the channel, hit the little notification bell, and otherwise engage with the content. If you have any questions or suggestions or just anecdotes you'd like to share, please share them in the comments. You can also reach out to us. Our contact information are included in the show notes with this video. Otherwise, we will be back for more in, hopefully next week. So it's good to be back on the air after our little hiatus. And thank you so much again, Sandra. I really enjoyed today.
Thank you. Likewise, Claudia. Have a good day.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody. Bye-bye.